This is our conversation about Eraserhead and a bunch of Jodorowsky movies. So there's things in that movie that I think people just see and they're like, what the fuck is that? So they're not even that ridiculous, all of them. So there's like this thing in Henry's apartment. There's this tree thing stuck in a pile of dirt.
I love that.
On the side of the table. And I think people are just like, well, that's just a weird thing. To me, that's commentary on Henry not knowing how to take care of living things.
Yeah.
So like that, to me, that's a pot plant without the pot.
Yeah.
So it's like a thing that's living without a home.
Okay.
Which is the baby.
I think we're on the same page.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in the same boat with that one?
I could tell you, because obviously a lot of the things that you hear about Eraserhead are like, oh, it's so abstract.
Yeah.
It's so this, and I watched it, and I'm not saying like I'm not a genius here for like figuring anything out, but maybe I projected something of myself onto it.
Yeah.
But I just figured that it's what's the name of the lead character again? Henry, yeah. I think it's Henry unable to deal with like responsibility, and feeling more inclined to delve into pleasure than to be productive. And
I don't think it's mainly about personal responsibility. I think it's about like mainly like parental responsibility.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Which is a little bit different to like general responsibility.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like he wants to continue to just be.
I just think that he likes the woman down the hall more.
Yeah.
And wants to have sex with her.
And the woman in the radiator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the woman in the radiator is no. He doesn't like her more than the woman in the radiator. So here's the thing. So in my opinion, this is what this is.
Yeah.
The woman in the radiator is, I think, what Henry needs in his life in a partner, like in a woman, let's say. So she's this person who, it's so like weird to talk about this.
It feels weird saying it how
it is. I'll say it. I don't care. She is this. So the woman down the hall, we don't know her, to be fair. We don't know what her life's like. It's implied she's like sleeping with this other guy. So maybe she's not too involved in like having some sort of monogamous relationship, put it that way. Or in a relationship that's like loving and caring. And I think that's what the woman in the radiator is. Also like the obvious thing being like, it's a radiator, it's hot. There's nothing to indicate that the world of Eraserhead, maybe there is, that it's not hot or whatever, but I think there might be people breathing water vapor in that movie a fair bit, and like people are it's coldish, right?
Yeah.
Even if
no one's walking around in a t-shirt and shorts.
That's very obvious, and many movies have done this, which is just like colder environments. Cold represents emotionally being cold. Everybody knows what that means, and the warmness is the other side of it, and like the radiator is what that is. I even have heard an interview David talk about the fact that the woman in the radiator thing he came up with later, so that wasn't in the real script. But
he just looked at the radiator,
right?
Yeah,
and the movie would have been hyper dark if she wasn't there. But it's still even a little bit more dark that she is there in a way. So like, it would have been more bleak and straightforward were she not there. Audio listeners, video listeners. Can you be a video listener? Whatever. The video's out. It's just audio from now on. Sorry, guys.
Sam Vero, give me back my battery charger.
You've been called out, Sam. Yeah, I don't know if it was David Lynch who came up with the eye of the duck term, but he said something like every movie should have like an eye of the duck scene, which is the scene where like the eye on a duck for some reason looks like it shouldn't be there, but it completes the thing or something like that. I could be getting this entirely wrong, but he said that was the reason for the lady in the radio scene is that scene. And to me, like, I don't want to disagree with David Lynch about his like philosophy of things, but I don't think that scene's really any more complicated or not complicated than what's happening, other than that scene very much. I think Eraserhead is like, whether the world is real or not, it could be like interpreted as a surrealist world. So we could be in Henry's head looking at things how he sees things, or that's actually the world and that's how he participates in it. But the scene with the lady in the radiator feels to me like, so even if we are in his head for the movie, then we're in his head, if that makes sense. With that scene, I feel like that's what's happening. Even at the end, I feel like that's what's happening. There's one. Even at the end. By the way, what I mean is there's that one shot at the end where they hug.
Yeah, they're embracing.
I feel like that's in his head. even if the movie is already in his head. It's like just a double. It's like when a surrealist movie that has a dream in a surrealist movie, it's like, well, it's just in his head. That's fine. Yeah. You can have the layers, you know. So she's representative of some sort of more warm, embracing, caring love that he kind of needs, that he's not getting from the woman who he has the baby with or the woman down the hall, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The cheek thing might be a straight exaggeration of like rosy cheeks to me. Like that's seriously what it could be. It could be commentary on the difference between like being beautiful and being pretty, you know?
Yeah.
And that one is more significant than the other. That's what it could also be there.
As in the woman is not conventional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I heard David Lynch in an interview be like, she's a very beautiful woman, I think she is. But like he's beauty and attractiveness are two different things.
Yeah.
So like it could be commentary on that as well. And then the fact that she's like crushing the semen, I guess. I think that's semen. It's in the same thing as like the opening,
the falling
scene.
worms.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Is like about him not feeling bad about getting the woman pregnant or something like that. Like not feeling bad for like wanting to have sex. Maybe that's what that's about. Or like, so the fact that she's crushing that is like that, or the fact that like his she's differentiating the want for sex from like the want from love or whatever that is. So that could be what that's about. Anyhow, he goes into that theater later on as well in his like dream sequence, I would say. Like that's another part of the dream sequence is when he goes into that, and then there's that giant pot plant there, which is awesome, and it starts like bleeding because it's in pain in the same way that his kid is in pain. And then his head is like, he watches himself, I think, in his head be replaced with the head of the baby.
Yeah.
Which is like being, I don't know if usurped is the right word, but like replaced by youth, because once you have a kid, you're no longer the most important person that you have to take care of. Now it's the kid. And so, and what that also does means is that your life to some extent and your ambitions are over because you have to replace the kid, and so you have to sort of sacrifice yourself to have a kid, even if you have a kid, you have to do that. So that's what that's about when the baby replaces his head.
I got this.
Yeah. That felt like that made sense to me. And then the whole bit with is that other dream with where his head is made into erasers.
Yeah.
Like that to me is about repressed memory, or him wanting to like erase that part of his memory or raise that part of his head, and like that's why it's called Eraserhead. It's like, I wish I could forget all of this, and so I didn't have to deal with all of this, so I didn't have to deal with all the torture of this.
Yeah.
And it's also,
it's like falls into that whole thing about like pleasure, like, you know, blind pleasure versus like I know we're differentiating between personal responsibility and parental, but just I could say very vaguely productivity versus, you know, self-destruction.
Sure.
And falling into pleasure. And I think it's interesting as well. So the woman in the radiator is the love that he needs in your interpretation.
Yeah.
I took it as he's completely given himself into self-pleasure.
Sure.
And I think
he realizes that, but I don't think he's actually done that.
Okay.
So I think he sees this woman in the radiator, knows deep down that's what he actually needs, but it's not what he's actually going to do.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Right.
She also says this thing to him that makes him feel comforted, which is like, she has that song where she's like, oh, in heaven everything is fine.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it makes an excellent point, which is just, if you kill yourself, you don't have to deal with any of your problems anymore. Yeah. Which is, you know, to some extent a comforting thought. Of course, the problem with suicide is that it leaves everyone else behind on Earth. Right. Yeah. So it's a completely irresponsible thing to do. But she's making that point that like, well, if you were to actually kill yourself, you wouldn't have to deal with any of this shit anymore. Yeah. So in heaven, everything is fine because, well, whether you believe in heaven or not, it's like...
So he needs that.
I'm not saying that he needs to kill himself. Yeah. I'm saying that the woman is making him realize that by killing himself, he wouldn't have to deal with this stuff anymore. Okay. Yeah.
And what's the...
I don't think she's encouraging him to do it.
Yeah, right. I'm just... Yeah. What's the... Like, when they embrace at the end... Yeah. What does that mean to you? What did you get from that? because I think we might have gotten totally
different things.
Yeah,
that happens after he kills the kid.
After the kid, yeah,
which is like
it's like the ultimate.
Yeah, he can't.
Yeah,
he couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
So, it's possible.
Do you think he's?
It's possible,
Yeah.
but what's happened is he kills this kid, can't live with that, kills himself, and then he meets that woman.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing to say. It's like, well, for some people, life is too much, and so Henry is happily selfish by the end, which is an interesting thing to say.
Okay. No,
I don't think that's the only way it can be drawn, and I don't really believe that Eraserhead is doing that personally.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what it's going for, but I think that's one of the things that it's... Perhaps David Lynch, of course he made things with them allowing to be open, but I think most of the best screenplays aren't open entirely. So basically what that means is like, if something gets so damn abstract that you can just abstract any interpretation from it, or like any narrative interpretation from it,
anymore.
Then it just is so ridiculous that it's useless. And if you can only take one, then it's just too stupid and simple, and it doesn't... Yeah. So you have to write things... You can, if you like, write things where the question, why did somebody do this, has like 80 different reasons. Yeah. And if your narrative is abstract, then like, well, what they actually did as well is also different. Yeah. But it maybe has a finite number. Like, Henry didn't just like turn into a duck and fly away. Yeah. He did something after that kid died, maybe, Yeah. Yep. Maybe that... I think probably what I think is going on there, not in relation to the suicide thing, is that after killing this kid, Henry just feels so terrible that he just like wants a hug and realizes that like that's what he needs in his life. I think what that moment is realization, like that he needs that sort of love, and that it took him killing his kid to realize that. Right. I think that's what that is to me.
I thought, to me, in my first viewing, what I got from it was he makes the huge decision to kill his kid. Yeah. And also neglect his kid when he's making love with the woman. Yes. From across the hall. Yeah. Which was, to me, is kind of the point where I went, oh, okay. Like I thought I got this story. Now I feel more confident that I have a base that I can pull things from. I think that was pretty definite to me.
I think that's just a thing that he does. So that's just like a casual sexual encounter that he has. Yeah. But he realizes that doesn't resolve the issue, which is the fact that there's a kid.
There's a kid that he has to raise. Exactly. Who's severely deformed.
So it's like he just indulges in a moment of like pleasure for a while, but then the problem still stands.
Yeah, the kid's still yelling,
and he realizes that. Yeah, of course, because you can't not realize that it's fucking it's like creepy kid yelling.
It's yelling all the time as well. Yeah, and like almost dying. Yeah, getting that it has like the blisters and stuff on.
Yeah. Oh, you are sick.
Yeah,
it's a great one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. But once he's hit that point, and we kind of see that the woman in the radio is giving him all of these ideas, but she's also quite...
What ideas is she giving him?
Well, the idea about, as you said, the thing about... He only imagined his head falling off and being replaced by the kid once he's in the space with the woman in the radiator.
Right. I don't think that she's giving him those ideas. Yeah. I think he's having those ideas. Like, I think the woman in the radiator is part of his imagination. Yeah. I don't think she's a character in the story in the same way that his the woman not his wife, but that woman is, or any of the family characters are. She's not in the same realm to me, if that makes sense. I don't think so any ideas that he's getting from her are just his ideas.
Right. Yeah,
she's in his head to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
But he's just
the theater's setting is the
while
same.
He's with her. He's having these ideas
about
the fact that
being in his head erased. Okay, so I think he goes into that theater in his head wanting to meet the woman. Yeah. But what he actually is met with is the reality of the situation. So he goes in hoping to find the woman, and all he finds is like the fact that he wants to like repress his memories and get rid of his brain, basically. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And then I think once he's had that realization, I think him embracing the woman is him fully committing to the idea that, okay, things are this bad.
Sure.
My solution to this is I'm going to stick with pleasure because I don't think I can get out of this.
Oh, and you think the woman's pleasure?
Yeah.
The woman in the radiator's pleasure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think like with that hug and him closing his eyes when it happens.
So you think she's similar to the woman down the hall?
She's...
Because they would both represent like momentary pleasure, let's say.
Yeah. I think she is eternal pleasure, I could say.
Over responsibility.
Okay. And she's, temporary.
I guess that's the difference.
Because there's like he couldn't, because she's in his head, he couldn't have a relationship and a kid with the woman in the radiator.
Right.
But, obviously it's not ideal because the woman down the hall sleeps with a lot of women, but he could still feasibly have something it's weird to say in a Lynch film, in the realm of reality with the woman down the hall or the woman that he's had the child with. And I think it's him falling completely into himself and wanting to stay there because he can't deal with anything.
I think he's aware that he has fallen into himself, or that he regrets that he's killed this kid, and that he realizes after having sex with this woman down the hall that actually is like meaningless. So I think he understands that by the end, and that he's so heartbroken over having killed the kid and the whole circumstance of the movie, not on the lost relationship. Maybe that means something. I think it does to some extent, because doesn't he go to see her after that and she's with another guy?
Yeah.
That's what happens,
and she acts like she doesn't know him.
So he's heartbroken over that, and also over the kid being dead.
Yeah.
That his realization, or he just retreats basically into his mind, and maybe he will go pursue a more caring maternal love, or maybe he won't. Yeah. But that's what he feels like he needs in that moment, if that makes sense.
It's just the hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what that is to me.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that woman in the radiator is like momentary pleasure. I feel like she's like what he knows that he probably needs, but he might not go get.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so when he's receiving the hug from her.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
I feel like it's weird to say it's him, because obviously when he's there he can't like make a living. Yeah. Obviously the kid's already dead, but he can't take care of the kid.
Yeah.
Should he be alive? It feels like it's more of a one-way trip to her. Like falling in. I feel like she's giving him the pleasure that he needs. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he grows.
No, I don't think
from this. I feel like that's him just wanting to like lay in the fetal position for the next 30 years and be a hermit.
Yeah.
That to me is,
which is not productive.
No.
But
that's sorry. Yeah, it's like not productive. He's like completely...
You think he's completely like surrendering to the fantasy of a woman he wants?
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's an understanding on his part that he needs a woman who is more caring and loving, as opposed to concerned with momentary pleasure.
Right. Okay.
And he knows that that's what he needs, or that comes to his brain. He might not even know that's what he needs, but that's what's actually coming up. That's where he retreats to after doing a bad thing. I don't think, there's anything to say that he's going to stay in his mind forever in the wanting for that sort of woman. That's just what he thinks of at that moment, because I don't feel like assuming the rest of Henry's life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's what the realization is. I don't think she's a negative figure. I think she's a positive figure.
Right.
Yeah. I don't see her as like a villain or like something that she's an ideal. She's like what he thinks that she's not even an ideal, because like you can have that idea of like an ideal woman, but I think she would look different to how the lady in the radiator looks, maybe, perhaps, or that she'd probably look like the woman down the hall. You know what I mean? Because he thinks that she's what he wants, and then he has her, and then he realizes that was useless, right? So I think I guess that would be my argument against that, although it could totally fair, but like I think that if he was projecting for a woman who was like just an ideal and there was no more depth to it, she would just look like the woman down the hall.
Yeah.
But she seems to me to look like a more like she comes off as more of like a caring sort of person.
Yeah,
but she's also distorted because I can't get away from the idea that she's like encouraging thoughts of suicide, or perhaps the heaven thing isn't a suicidal thing, and perhaps it's too fucking abstract. I can't even explain it.
I'm getting stuck on things when I'm trying.
What I'm trying to say is that. So you have to understand from the get-go that the woman in the radiator can only understand as much as he understands because she's in his head.
Yeah.
What he subconsciously or consciously understands about himself is that he needs a woman who actually loves him, basically. And he doesn't have that in the woman who he had the kid with or the woman down the hall. I think that's what she is like an actual like loving, caring woman. Whether he knows that he needs this or doesn't know that he needs this, that's where his brain goes. So, but she's also distorted because in it she's a figment of his brain. So his brain did a thing where it made her have those like cheeks and made her crush the sperm and do all that sort of stuff. And like sing to him and tell him that in heaven everything is fine. Maybe the heaven thing's even more simple than that. It's just like heaven is this nice place, and in heaven everything is fine. It's just like basically a very simple way of saying, in this retreated fantasy in your brain, everything's okay. Just come here in your brain and think of me when you feel bad.
Yeah.
It could be that thing, and there could be no suicidal implication, and that's just what it is. Whether he realizes the fact that he needs this sort of woman or not, because he can have these thoughts without knowing that that's what he might want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could just be coming to him. He ends the movie, to me, in that state of like limbo, wanting to be with the woman in the radiator just in that moment. But maybe when he's had enough of that, he'll go back.
to like some woman down the hall, maybe
exactly
the same one.
Yeah. But there's nothing in the movie to me to suggest that he's fully aware that that's what might be best for him.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you don't know if he's made that step or not, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not even entirely sure if that is like what's best for him. I think it's what's most comforting to him at the time. That's what I got on my first watch.
Yeah.
Was he just really needs like the hug.
Yeah.
And he really needs to be, because obviously it's black and white.
Sure.
There's a hell of a lot of black in that film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then suddenly we're in this white void.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier on the eyes than the imagery that we've been given.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot more, flowery. And I feel like it's just comfort. Like he's...
Yeah.
And it could be... I actually hadn't considered the in heaven being suicidal implications. Mm-hmm. But now I really feel like that's probably part of
something
it.
To do
like,
with
because it kind of... I feel like he's really...
I don't think David Lynch writes...
Not got his way out.
Yeah, I don't think that he writes the lyric, in heaven everything is fine,
thinking this is the one.
Without understanding that there's going to be some sort of like, well, where's heaven?
Where's
it's when you die.
How do you get to heaven?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What can you tell me what you think about the man on the planet? Because I actually don't even... I'm like stuck on that.
It could be some sort of... I've read interpretation that says something like that's an eternal father figure. And I think that's not right.
Yeah.
So I think that because you can make that argument that there's some sort of eternal mother figure in the woman in the radiator, and then that's juxtaposed with some eternal father figure in the head. I've heard that read into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's right.
I've tried really hard to stay away.
Here's my opinion on that guy.
Online interpretations.
My opinion about that guy is that he exists within Henry's brain, but he's Henry's sexual desire. In the same way that people will say you have the head of your penis and that has a brain in it.
Yeah.
That's that guy.
Okay.
And the reason that he's all
he's really warped.
He's really warped and diseased and fucked up looking is just maybe that's David Lynch's way of saying that maybe you don't trust the guy in your penis because that's what he looks like.
Yeah. Right.
Or he's not a someone to aspire to be, something like that. But because the reason that I think that that's who that is because when he pulls the lever,
what happens?
The sperm falls into the hole in the planet or the hole in the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So because that's the way in which that's cut, that's how I take that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There you go. I didn't even put together the worms being sperm.
when she's crushing them.
Yeah.
Well, I think that their sperm
I actually didn't know what
I
thought they were.
The reason that I think their sperm is because they look the same way that the worm does in the original scene.
Yeah.
Which is when Henry like opens his mouth and it like comes out and
like,
falls into the hole.
Yeah.
Which to me that's like the impregnation of like the baby, you know, that we see later on. That's what that is to me. So that's why, because that thing that falls looks the same as the things that she's crushing in the theater.
And it's kind of like a sperm cell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they look the same in that scene and that scene, so that's why I think they're the same.
I actually couldn't tell you what I really think. What you're saying makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And I could, you know, maybe that's what I go with next time I see it. Maybe I think, okay, like that's it.
I'm not confident about my interpretation.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, whether the elements mean this or not.
Yeah.
The broadness of the story is pretty simple to me, which is that Henry's in a really shit circumstance that he wishes that he wasn't in.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to distinguish between momentary pleasure in a woman and a woman who he can have a life with.
Yeah, and have parental responsibility.
Exactly.
As a result of.
And so it's just all a big mess sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's obviously about like parenthood, obviously, as well. That's what I feel like it's about.
Do you think that...
And trauma, and trauma and the result of, like, the fact that this baby popped up caused him trauma, him wanting to erase that from his head and repress it as a repressed memory being the Eraserhead. That's, like, in broad terms, that's Eraserhead, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. And do you think that the... You know, obviously the condition of that baby is dictated by the nature in which the baby was conceived?
Yeah, I think, that's fair.
I think that's one idea I had as well.
Yeah.
Is the fact that baby's come out so ugly.
Yeah.
Because he's done it purely because he wants to.
To
have sex.
Yeah.
And like this is, you know, obviously the baby's the baby, but it could also just be, this is the consequence in your life of doing something purely out of lust, and it's an ugly thing, and it's not a beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really great.
And it will annoy you.
Yeah.
That's kind of. Because, you know, obviously you see him and it's like, that doesn't come from two human beings.
Sure.
But it's David Lynch, so...
Maybe if there was ever a sequel to Eraserhead in which he pursued a meaningful relationship with this woman in the radiator, and she was a real character and not in his brain, the baby would come out like...
It would come out like Jonathan Lipnicki in Jerry Maguire.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe
in a Hollywood sense.
I think that's probably fair.
Yeah. There's a few ideas. I just really want to watch it again so badly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was a big day that day.
Mm-hmm.
I know you might remember. I'm still really catching up on my art films, and it's great because I'm watching a lot in my attempt to catch up at the moment. And so I had a day a couple of weeks ago where I had a full day with no plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to make it a mission today. I'm going to watch 3 art films that I've been putting off because maybe it's not super easy viewing, and maybe I haven't had the energy to try and digest something like that.
Yep.
So I watched Mirror, The Dance of Reality, and Eraserhead back to back. And
talk about overload.
Yeah, and I was so confused and sad.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I'm only getting my ideas now a couple of weeks afterwards.
Yeah,
and honestly, on Mirror, I'd love to sit here and be able to go, okay, now let's talk about Mirror, but I fucking couldn't.
All right, let's not talk about Mirror until
I really
have some
couldn't.
more ideas.
I could probably talk about Dance of Reality, but I feel like Dance of Reality is not that.
No.
It's not that abstract.
Yeah.
It's like damn near. Well, it is. It's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah. Well, he said it's autobiographical.
Yeah, and he's in there to he appears to explain it as well, Jodo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be too much. Jodo's movies, you can like go into an explanation about them, but they seem to be, perhaps with the exception of The Holy Mountain.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty understandable to me.
Yeah.
Even in the most like crude ways. There's a scene in Sangre even where this guy shows up to this one place and somebody asks him on a date. I won't spoil what happens, but basically...
I haven't seen Sangre.
Okay, I won't spoil this, but there's just... Sangre is one of my favourite movies ever. And he just like pulls this giant python out of his pants. Just like, it just does not end. It's just like a massive fucking python. And it's like...
I wonder what that is.
Well, yeah, exactly. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like
Yeah.
useless explaining the metaphor because it's just so clean that it's like, why would you need to?
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like, there's stuff in the Holy Mountain that seems simple to me too. It's even like explained a lot.
Yeah.
It's like
there's the whole I love the clitoris machine or the orgasm
machine.
Hilarious. Oh my god.
Yeah.
What an idea.
Yeah,
and it's like, and it just grows and becomes more complicated.
Yes,
as he's like figuring it out, and you need like an engineer.
Yeah. To
hilarious. So funny.
Yeah. And very, very, like, you don't even need to go into detail about interpreting the metaphor, because Jodo almost does it in a way for you, but not in a way where it feels demeaning. No. Because it's comedy.
And it's so visually interesting.
Exactly.
Because from a production design standpoint as well, you're also wondering, like, how the hell did you make this thing that you know, folds out like a transformer? But there's clearly no CGI here. Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome.
All that stuff's pretty clear. Like, even in the opening scenes of Holy Mountain, when like the heads are shaved and all the thing like this, like maybe it's metaphor, but if it's metaphor, it's simple. It's like, you know, let go of everything that makes you yourself and realize that you think makes you yourself, and like realize that you're just like, you know, a consciousness in a body, and that's what it is. Like, but that's a lot of stuff, and Holy Mountain has a lot of metaphors. It's like when he has to, he takes the little person off his body and throws him into the water. It's like, but he can see the little person. You know, it's the same thing. Like, those ones feel pretty. The Holy Mountain mostly to me feels pretty much like the metaphor is like they're an exaggeration a lot of the time. Yeah. There are a few ones that are more complex, and there's a few in Santa Sangre, like the elephant, for example, but I won't go into that. That feel like they're a bit, you know, there's a bit more complicated to them, even though the elephant, I still feel like there's a shot in it which pretty clearly clears the elephant thing up, but like I feel like Lynch is a little bit more, you have to sort of go into the coding a bit more, but only because his style of metaphor is not like overtly comedic, if that makes sense. I fucking love Jodo, and I don't think that by any standard that he's like less of a filmmaker because his metaphors that's how he goes about doing visual metaphor. That's bullshit. He's brilliant at it. He's one of the best directors ever. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Is like every movie he's just like, I don't think there's a director like Jodo in the sense that there's nobody that like pours their soul out in a more like raw, honest way on film than Jodo. I can't think of anybody who does it as well as he does.
I couldn't believe some of the shit that he put into the Dance of Reality. From his childhood. And in also just having the he mentions it when he's promoting the Dance of Reality. He said, you know, in the Jodo, I'm not going to try and do his accent much. Okay. And it would be offensive. But he's
I think he would enjoy it.
Because I love he even in his accent, he has such a particular tenacity to the way he talks as well, which is so funny. So interesting to watch. But he's talking and he says, obviously he puts across some very, very, very personal things about his father. You know, and portraying real people in your life is obviously such a thing that you need to be so careful about. And then it's just a whole another extra layer when it's your own father. And and he says, I had my son play my father. You want to talk about a psychological explosion? I don't want to spoil. The beginning of this episode is going to be, guys, if you don't want spoilers too. Synecdoche, Holy Mountain, Eraserhead, Dance of Reality, Santa Sangre. But the scene where his wife pisses on him and it saves him. I just cannot even, like, the human being who you know, blocked that out and put it on screen. And I'm pretty sure, you know, I don't know anything about the behind the scenes. Maybe she has a backpack on her back because we never look behind her, and maybe it's feeding a tube down to between her legs. But I don't think there is. It doesn't look like there is. It looks like she's really peeing on that guy.
Jodorowsky went full punk rock.
I think he did. I think she peed. And man, she must have had a gallon of water beforehand. Because there's no shortage.
I wouldn't be surprised. You know, like George Harrison was supposed to be the main guy in the Holy Mountain.
I love. It makes so much sense that this was the point of no. You know?
Yeah.
This is about him washing the asshole.
Yeah. He said you showing your ass on camera.
Yeah, and we're gonna wash it.
Yeah, we're gonna wash it on camera. Yeah. Is it no? Well, then you're not in the movie.
Yeah. He said you need to, and it makes sense. It's like you need to.
I love a director who will fire the only way that movie would have made money over the fact that you'll not show your asshole on camera.
Yeah. It's like, what do you mean you won't show your asshole on camera? That's ridiculous.
He was even like, there was some... Yeah, he apparently made the argument to George, like, this is a way of showing the people that you're without humility.
Yeah.
The whole bit. And George's like, no, I'm not doing that. He's like, well, fuck off. You're not in the movie.
And you know what's awesome about that as well is I remember I heard that for the first time. I know, because obviously I have such huge respect for the film. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And I go, what? That sucks that he didn't do that. And then it only takes me a second to go, Izac, would you do that? And I go, fuck no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. And then I completely understand George's point of view. But it's just, I don't know, it just shows, you can understand the significance of what Jodo's doing.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that he does it and he puts all of that effort into making it exactly how it is.
Yeah.
It's so respectable. It's so brave.
Yeah, it's insane.
How he is. It's just as a human being too.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he has that awesome interview where he talks about meeting Spike Jonze and Kanye West.
Yes.
And you can just tell that these are just, Americans to him. Mm-hmm. Like, these aren't the huge cultural figures that they are in our mainstream culture. And he just says, oh, what's his name?
He didn't know Kanye was. Yeah.
Kanye West?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like him. He talks a lot. And Spike Jonze, very weird, he didn't talk much.
Yeah.
To be fair, if I was in a room with Kanye and Jodo, I don't know where I'd get a word in.
Probably not, He said during that interview about Kanye, he's like, the story about Kanye, it's like 10 minutes, go look it up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's great.
He goes on about like, he wants to meet you because he loves the Holy Man. Like, okay, great. I love to meet people who love my movies. Sure. He's like, well, it doesn't have anything to do with the Kanye West. I know he's famous. What do I do? Tarot. I have the tarot cards. Do tarot.
Yeah.
I just love that he's so obsessed with tarot and that he loves it so much, and yet he's not precious about it at all.
Yeah.
He's just like, I literally did the tarot thing for him because I didn't know what to talk to him about, so I thought I'd whip my tarot cards out and just fucking do it that way.
Yeah.
Which is just great, Like, I love anybody who's that self-aware, and he's so self-aware. He's amazing, absolutely amazing director.
I really need to see. I gotta see more. I haven't seen El Topo. I haven't seen Sangre. I haven't seen Endless Poetry.
They're all great, which is insane.
Yeah.
I think Sangre is probably my second favorite because of it's so amazingly dense, and like there's certain shots in that movie it was just like, I can't believe he orchestrated shit like that.
Yeah.
Endless Poetry has some of those as well, where there's like these huge crowds of people, bigger than Sangre.
Yeah. He has that insane shot of the angel above all the people dressed in red.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
There's a shot in... Oh, it's kind of a spoiler, but there's a shot in Dance of Reality where the actor who's playing the young Jodo is walking towards the docks to the boat. Yeah. And he's walking past all of these black and white cardboard cutouts of people from earlier in the film. Mm-hmm. And it's like... It like makes me... Even just talking about it, like, makes me really feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the best, just
shots ever.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I was so. I haven't done this since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning Adobe Illustrator on the iPad later in the week because I'm learning for storyboard reasons and things that I have to do in my job.
Yeah.
And I just picked that and I just had so much fun tracing that shot because the image of it is like stuck in my head.
Yeah. Everything that, whatever you think about a Jodo movie, because I know there's people who watch them and just like, this is so abstract that I'm just not getting anything from this. I don't think it's deniable that his production design and cinematography are just amazing.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's all with reason too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Really.
I love how like homemade it feels as well a lot of the time. It's brilliant. He knows exactly what he's doing, I think, as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's like fully developed to me. Yeah, he's amazing.
And he has been for so long.
Forever, yeah. Since he started making movies, yeah.
What a great guy.
We just went on a huge tangent about a lot of surrealist movies.
How the hell are we going to break this up?
Well, we should talk about writing a bit.
That was what the hell is that episode called? It's like...
I don't know, we just...
Eraserhead plus a sprinkling of... Yeah, I don't know.
I think the first bit about writing is one episode.
Yeah.
And then the second bit about these movies is the second episode.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to do the third one.
Okay. Guys, if you're confused by all these tangents, please refer to the terms and conditions of episode 1.
Yes,
okay?
Yeah.
We warned you there was going to be tangents. Okay.
We've only been going for an hour.
Okay.
We're doing
That's not so bad.
It's 1:13 now, and we
Excellent.
started this at about 12.
So we have 5 hours to go.
Yeah. So I want to know.
Yeah.
So we should talk about writing.
Okay. Oh, do we have to?
I always want to talk about other people's movies, not my movies. That's my problem.
I don't want to talk about my film.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Did you catch me deflecting, trying to get you to talk about Bloom?
Oh, it's alright.
Yeah, if you have any, I don't know, shoot if you want, Noah. We can play a bit of tennis.
Do you do any planning for what you're going to write?
No.
No, neither do I.
I really
Do you ever have ideas?
I really don't.
Yeah, I know.
That sounds like you know.
Yeah.
To some that might sound like I don't have a vision, but it's like no, I'm just not satisfied that I haven't yet. You know.
What does that mean?
In terms of I'll have ideas,
mm-hmm.
but I don't know what the film is yet, and I'll get into
sure
what the film is when I get the characters to start.
Do the ideas
talking?
Do they feel like independent ideas to you? Like they could be in different movies?
They're a little, some of them could be.
Okay.
But I don't think they are. I feel like, when I'm in the space thinking about a particular story, I'll have different ideas.
Yeah.
And I'll know that because I'm in a particular headspace, these are like breadcrumbs.
Yeah. I feel like...
Yeah.
So I'm writing like 2 or 3 screenplays at once. But when I say writing, I mean I'm usually actively... Yeah. Really working on one, and then the other 2, some things tend to fall in.
Yeah.
But because the plots of movies tend to revolve around a few sort of simple things, like what do you have in movies? There's like drama movies, there's romance movies, there's like adventure movies, there's things like this. Like the general plots of things are like pretty timeless, you could sort of say. So if some idea comes up that relates to one of those things, I will generally take that idea and plug it into, not even attempting to plug it into, just being like, oh, that relates to this scenario, this story that I'm writing about. And so when those ideas come, I generally have a place to put them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I don't just have random ideas and then they could be in any sort of screenplay.
Yeah.
I usually have the ideas relate to something that I'm already writing about, and then I think about how that relates to how the story that I'm writing about is about, and how I could work such an idea in.
Yeah. That's
how I usually... Do you do that?
Yes, more or less.
Okay.
Like what I kind of mean by I don't have the vision yet is it's not like I have one idea and then I go, now I need 11 more.
Okay.
Because it's like, if like an idea is like 10 pages or so, I don't think like that. I think I have a few... I have maybe a core idea that I think could be cool as a premise.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just a mechanism, but if it's something that I can juggle a few things on. Like it's a premise that I can explore different things through because of how that premise works. Like if I have an idea where, okay, this isn't my idea, but if I have an idea where it's like, okay, we're going to have someone think about their life and they're going to explore memory. It's like, great, okay. I can, like, that scope is interesting to me. I can put so many different things through that. And then maybe I might start there.
Right.
But I couldn't tell you like what the final scene of the film is.
Yeah.
And then it's not all about a mission of getting to that scene.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm building to find out what that scene should be.
Right.
That's the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am also sort of inclined where like I think I'm writing scenes more than I'm writing the story, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of like linking tissue that I put in to make it link more, Yeah. I don't plan for the ending to come. It just comes like any other sort of idea. I think my problem with writing endings down sometimes, which is annoying. I don't like when I get ideas that I think are going to plug in later in the screenplay, because those ones end up changing more because they're dependent on the earlier ones.
Yeah.
So like if I have an idea for the ending when I'm halfway through the screenplay, and not when I say halfway through, I definitely don't start at the start and end at the end.
Yeah.
Like sometimes my initial idea for the thing takes place at the 20-minute mark.
Yeah,
or sometimes it takes place at the 40-minute mark. Like I don't actually know like where it's gonna, and just because of what the event is, sometimes I can sort of tell when it's gonna happen, if that makes sense. But I'll have like an idea for an ending, like maybe even if I'm like 40% of the way through. Sometimes even if I'm 20% of the way through. But it will change, that the ending ends up changing, or I end up adding another ending onto the ending, so it just like has like an extra bit on the end that concludes a bit that I didn't think about, because this ending that I have 20 minutes through is not taking into account everything else, because how could it, because that stuff's not written. I feel like it's much more of a thing of like, let's say I have a timeline for a movie set up and it starts at 1 and it ends at like 100, and like these are all big ideas. So there's 100 scenes, for example, which I think is the average amount of scenes in a movie anyhow. Mine tend to be about 50, but there's 100. Let's say that's 100. It comes about, to me, as far as I can tell, first I get 22, then I get like 71, then I get like 64, then I get like 54, then I get 25. It just sort of like fills in randomly, like dots on a line.
Yeah.
It doesn't go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ever.
Yeah.
I never have had that ever. Sometimes it'll go like, I'll get 15 to like 20, like in one streak.
Yeah.
Like that's good, because just sometimes events make another event happen, which makes another event happen, and so you have like a sequence of scenes sometimes. But most of the time I just feel like it's filling in the 100 things like this, and then you have to pull ones out and plug other ones in because things happen that contradict those ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like you work like that?
Totally. Okay. I was telling Noah earlier this morning before we started recording that I wrote a particular scene, and I've been writing, it's probably going to be a feature, but I've been writing it for well over a year now, and I had this...
Just getting started.
Yeah, right. how good's that?
Yeah.
And I had an idea for a scene a few days ago, which is the one I was telling you about.
Yep.
And then while I was writing it, I figured out that this could actually be a good opening scene. Because of a few of the things, and I only discovered them when I started writing the dialogue for the scene, because there were things that I was noticing in it where I'm like, that's interesting that this introduces itself here, because I have more ideas on that later. So that's cool that makes its appearance here. And I think there's particular things about it that really, to me, could give an idea on who my central character is in relation to other people. And I only wrote the scene in script form last night, and I've been writing the script for a year.
Nice.
And I just didn't even know that this scene existed. And I didn't even realize it was probably the first scene until I was halfway through it. And
Nice.
I thought, oh, cool. Okay.
That's cool.
No, this is great. Yeah. I like that. And it's funny to me that this is where you get tossed into the story. I've written scripts where I've worked from front to back, and I've had things like, okay, this is probably, I didn't aim to have an inciting incident, a conflict, and a resolution, but that's how it went, because that's how a lot of films that I've seen have panned out. And I didn't like the rigidity that I'd trapped myself in by having that goal at the time. And it's not a mind state that I was aware of when I was writing it, but now in hindsight it's like, wow, I could have gotten all of this extra stuff out of it. Why did I think that this had to fit this pace or this criteria? I could have just let them talk.
I personally get really annoyed when I am given technical writing advice that flies in the face of actions that are committed by the characters in the screenplay. So I really hate listening to people who talk about what a 5-act structure is, a 4-act structure is, a 3-act structure. And I think one of the reasons that I hate it so much is because like it like disgusts me in some way. And it's like...
Is it because it's kind of like they're trying to tell you that there's one way to write?
No, it's more personally annoying. So I feel like I have a serious responsibility to my characters on an emotional level. And I say characters, but it's like, they're people, really. If there's Bergman movies that are around from the 40s, and we know they're not real because he wrote the movie, and they're characters that he made up, Let's say in 2,000 years' time, something happens and we can't distinguish between what a real story is and what a fake story is. Let's go with Through a Glass Darkly. Let's say that Through a Glass Darkly, over time, is mistaken for an autobiographical story, or like literally something that actually happened, not even an autobiographical story, something that happened in real life, and people forget that it's a film. Like, there's just stories that exist in the world, and you don't actually really know if they happened as historical events or not. Your story, theoretically, in however many years, could be mistaken for actually having happened. I think that is a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
And so, at that point, and there's plenty of people's lives who just go completely forgotten, and nobody knows what they went through in their life, because they didn't tell anybody. What do you know about your great-grandmother's life? Like, nothing. And, like, it's probably not recorded anywhere. So now that life's completely forgotten, and these fictional lives are remembered, sort of thing. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're the same thing, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, over time, the lines between reality and fiction are going to get blurred. And so I try to treat these people that I write like people, and not like they're like devices for me to tell somebody something. One of the reasons that I let them determine what they're going to do, and I just feel like I'm somebody putting it down and then putting my taste on top of that, because I feel like what I'm trying to do with my taste is get things out that are raw and honest. And if it's not raw and it's not honest, then I don't want to do it. So by letting the characters move themselves, they're moving themselves in my subconscious to some extent.
Yeah.
And then I'm just filtering out the stuff that feels like it's got an agenda behind it. So I'm trying to remove the dishonesty from it, I guess, like the agendas behind it and things like this, and just leaving what's there, and then only keeping the stuff from that's there that still feels like it's really important and like understood and honest and really honest. So when people say like you need to do this to a character, like I don't want to even say what this is, but like there's a character, famous characters in movies, and like a screenwriting device that is commonly used is like, well, give them some sort of physical defect, and then people will feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And I know that these are characters and not real people, but for some reason that like physically disgusts me and makes me really upset, because it's like so manipulative to the real people who are watching things. It's like, to do that to a fictional character feels like when you see somebody it's like devaluing the experience of people who actually go through that stuff, and like you're just doing it because you want to like poke somebody's emotional reaction out of them. Like, it's not coming from a real place.
Yeah.
And I guess you won't know if it's come from a real place if you're a writer, but you fucking will. The person who wrote it will. And whether they feel bad about that or not is like whatever. And you'll never, the person watching it might never know if it came from a real place or not. But I can't put shit in my screenplays that I'm doing to like manipulate people. I can't do that. It's just like, it's gross. Like, it feels really gross. So it's the same problem with writing a 3-act or a 4-act structure. It's like, well, you're controlling these people with your like grid-like agenda as to how they should act, just so you can tell a story. So it's easier for you to do. It's like, that really is gross.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about fictional characters, but like, I don't care. Like, that feels to me like really cheap and completely dishonest. So that's why I can't do that write things that way. It's just like, yeah, put this here because we need a moment here to do this thing, and put that there. It's just like, it's so fucking manipulative and stupid.
It's like, it's weird to say that it's like sociopathic. Why are you having the thought that, oh, if I broke my leg tomorrow, everyone would feel all this sympathy for me.
Well, that's like
so maybe it would be ideal in a sense for me to break my leg.
Well, that's like I guess like a human thought to have. Maybe you're having that thought because you feel lonely or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like there are people who are just writing stories because they're in a position where they need to write a story or something like that. And like writing stories, for me, I've said it this 1,000 times on the podcast, right? If it's not personal, I don't care. And I want to make a distinction between something being personal and autobiographical. They're not the same thing. The difference being like something that happened to you or that you experienced is autobiographical. I don't put any of that shit in my movies because that's like, you want to talk about like a moral dilemma, like that's really one. And then something personal is something that like means something to you, but the events might not have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So who knows if I don't know David Lynch's life story, to be honest. And maybe there are similarities between Eraserhead and what he went through in his life. I think there are probably...
He was going through a divorce.
Yeah.
He just had his child.
Yeah, there are probably a few, right?
Yeah.
But like, he didn't walk through a nuclear world of tar and his baby didn't look like that.
Yeah.
And at the family dinner, the chicken didn't start shooting blood.
Yeah.
But that's how he chose to express what was personal to him. And it doesn't even have to be that direct. That if that's what he was going through, then that's kind of relatively direct. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't even have to be that direct. It's like, I don't believe in writing anything where it's like, you know, the more like emotional depth and complexity that there is in a scene, I feel like the more work you have to do as a writer to write that.
Yeah.
And I don't think about things like how I want to shoot it or how a cool shot would look or anything like that. It's like all that directorial stuff is all consequence of screenplay. The shots should accurately and honestly portray what's happening, not like conflict with it. They have to be respectful and treat the people in the story with respect. They have to treat your actors with respect. You have to treat your own story and yourself with respect, and you have to treat your audience with respect. So you have to think about if all these things are like accurately and honestly reflecting what ideas you're getting at, because you owe that to everybody else who comes into your theater, who's gone through similar things that your characters are going through. Not only do you have a responsibility to them to do that, but you have a responsibility I was going to tie this up nicely, but my train of thought just derailed.
I think I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
How can you even like have something with like a predetermined structure and then say you're going to write something honestly to fit the structure?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like trying to do like BMX tricks with training wheels on your bike.
Yeah, it's literally like saying you're going to go on a radio show and freestyle a verse and then having it written.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, this is coming from me, guys, and it's coming from me in this space. No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you wrote it already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also now you're here presenting it to us like it is.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Maybe those tools can help you going in order to learn the mechanics of how to write a story if you've never written one before.
Yeah, guys, we're not saying it's not helpful to learn what these structures are.
Yeah, I'm not to tell anybody what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
I just want somebody to explain to me how the fuck they feel like they can be like raw and honest while also serving like a schematic.
Yeah.
I could not do that to save my fucking life.
Absolutely. You know, it's we're just not a fan of the idea that, you know, obviously Noah and I are talking about how we like to write stories, and maybe if you think something's helpful, you can take it from this. But if you feel like none of this is useful for you, don't
throw all of this out.
Yeah, which is honestly, don't like throw it out. That's fine. We're going to still write our stories how we write our stories. We just have a huge issue with people saying this is how you should write your story to other people.
Yeah.
Because you're not those people.
One of the pieces of writing advice that I feel like I actually figured out for myself to some extent is that you shouldn't listen to people's writing advice whose work you don't actually like, or that you don't think is honest at least. So like, before you start taking writing advice from somebody, you should like watch their movies or listen to something that they've written or said or whatever, and then decide if that's something that you want to make, because your work can't help but be a reflection of who you are, I think.
Yeah.
And I think this like...
How could it not be?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, Noah, tonight when you dream as if you were me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't do it.
Like, what the fuck? What are you asking me to do?
I might have said this before on a podcast, but there's a brilliant interview with Quincy Jones and Kendrick Lamar. I think it was for GQ. After Butterfly came out.
Yeah.
And Quincy's just like saying all this beautiful stuff to Kendrick. And one of the things that he said in the interview is like, the music can never be more or less than who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
So every single part of who you are will... And if you don't like... So it's kind of like, you know... Let's say you work really, really hard on a screenplay, but you could have worked harder. It's like, well, the fact that you could have worked harder will reflect in your story, because it's part of you being you is that it's not as good as it could be if you were everything you could be.
Yeah.
So the actual drop in quality is part of who you are as well.
Yeah.
And you can sort of take this endlessly to like, but really, I think you should think about that in the same way that if you write something that fits a schematic and you personally believe that that's honest, well then maybe you'll make a film to other people and people will be able to think like, well, this person thinks they're being honest, but they're actually sticking to a structure, which is what you're doing whether you're aware of it or not, sort of thing. And it's all taste, and so you have no idea what's going through somebody else's head when they really wrote a thing. But I feel like audiences can sometimes see through that shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking on this episode.
No. I'm just, I don't know. It's
I'm just talking about writers that I have the shits with, basically.
Yeah. It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never know what to do, but I know what the fuck not to do most of the time.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah. I wouldn't feel bad about doing a lot of talking. No, it's not like you're not rambling.
No. Yeah. Well, they can decide.
Yeah. Guys, leave a comment. Is Noah rambling? Yes. Is Izac rambling? Let us know. What did we talk about for the third hour? We talked about Haneke.
Yes.
And,
in the third hour of this, we don't know really what we talked about. We can't remember. It had something to do with writing, and at the end of it, we were also scared that all our podcast information got deleted and that we stopped recording. So that's really hilarious. So have fun and enjoy that.
Yeah. And we also talked a lot about... we mention Haneke?
Yeah, must have, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we talked a lot about Haneke as well, because we're big fans.
Okay. Have fun, guys.